All right, I hope that you were able to learn a little bit about each other. I'm waiting for everyone to come back. I think everybody is almost here. All right, so that was maybe a first experience to go into a break room like that and then come back. Like I said, we'll be doing an activity in a little bit where you'll have a chance to get in the same group.
Everybody's trying to learn. Okay, but it's okay.
Yeah, and so this is good. We're all learning together in this. But I want to now move on a little bit into our content. And just to remind you, we are meeting for Wednesdays and Fridays for the next 3 weeks. And our goal in this Integrity and Finance class is to help it's a training of trainers to some degree for this course. This is a course that we have been teaching for some time with Development Associates International. And they have given us permission to teach it through DML. And we believe it's something that is very important. Prior to teaching Integrity and Finance, I had developed a course for ICM called Accounting for Pastors. And it was because I saw that there was an important need for pastors and church leaders to know what was happening in terms of accounting and bookkeeping. They may have accountants, they may have bookkeepers, but the pastors are the leaders and they need to understand what is happening in the churches as well. So in this course, I'm merging some of that material. So Integrity and Finance is for pastors and church leaders, but also for organizational leaders. And our hope and our goal is for you to take this information and to see how it might apply in your context for the people that you are working with, to be able to shape and form it in a way that helps our pastors, helps our churches, helps organizational leaders and business leaders as well to have integrity in how they work with their finances. So I want to tell you a little bit about myself. We already did the introductions. Some of you have heard me say that I am a Dutch, Canadian, American, Liberian, Ghanaian, Kenyan citizen. And I see Freeman looking at me, and Freeman often tells me that I'm also Nigerian as well. But those are the places, you know, that I feel like I've lived, but also have influenced who I am. So basically, for those of you who don't know me, my parents, both were immigrants from the Netherlands after the Second World War. They moved to Canada, so I'm first generation Canadian, but I married an American, and then in 2005, we moved to West Africa, lived in Liberia, then lived in Ghana, then lived in Kenya. And so since 2005, I've been living and working in Africa. And so essentially I say that I am confused. I don't really know where I belong, except that I know that I am on my way to heaven and I'm passing through this world at this time. Some of the things that I want you to know about me is, as I said, I was born and raised in Canada. I was the youngest of 5 children. My father was a pastor, and because they went through the Second World War, it had a significant impact on how they handled finances. It could be that my father was like this just already on his own. It wasn't just because of the war, but the war taught them, I think, to be very, very careful with money. And that's how I was raised. So this is a picture of me as a baby. My father is holding me, and those are my siblings. And my father was very, very tight with money my entire life. So I spent my entire life, we didn't have Christmas presents. We never had new clothing. You know, the beggars. So because he was a pastor, you know, people come to the pastors to beg for food or money, and the beggars even would refuse our food. And I didn't realize that it was, you know, that I was viewed as poor at that time, because that was just how our family was. We had powdered milk. We never had fresh milk. those types of things. And so that helped me actually shape me for how I handle my finances. And so that's partly why it's a passion. My father taught me very early on how to be very careful with money. In 1990, I married Bob Reed, and we have 2 children. Hannah, you can see on the left, is 27 now, and Noah is 25, and that's Noah's girlfriend with him. Her name also happens to be Hannah, which makes for a little bit of confusion in our family. But my husband, Bob, passed away in 2010 while we were living in Ghana. But a little bit about my story as it relates to integrity and finance. Bob and I moved to the inner city in 1997 in Grand Rapids, Michigan. So it was, our church was there, and but it was a very poor neighborhood, primarily African-American neighborhood with Latino presence as well. But most would say it was 100% people living in poverty. Very high crime neighborhood as well, but we felt that God was calling us to move there and to live there. And so we started an organization called Restorers based on Isaiah 58 verse 12. And that organization, by the time I left 7 years later to move to West Africa, we had 9 programs. We were funded by the city, state, federal government, as well as churches, foundations, and businesses. And so it grew fairly quickly. But one of the things that I learned and began doing in that ministry was to teach what we called financial freedom classes. And we realized that actually those who have money were in worse shape than those who were poor. The more access you have to money, to credit cards, to loans, sometimes with less discipline, the more trouble that you can get in. And so I spent 7 years teaching financial freedom and teaching budgeting and teaching, just seeing people in bondage over finances. And so it became a big passion of mine, and I give credit to my father for that. My husband then lost his job because of our commitment to our community, and that allowed us, that's a longer story I won't go into now, but it allowed us to be free to respond to God's call to Africa. And one of the things that I believe is so important, why it's important for us to be debt-free, is when I met my husband, he had so much debt and so many student loans and credit card debts. And if God had told us at that time to go here or to go there, we would have had to say, no, it's not an option. We are enslaved. We are in bondage to pay our debts off first. And so once we were debt-free and God put this call in our life, we were able to move. And that's one of the things that I think as Christians that as best as we can to get ourselves debt-free, we can respond to God's call. If we are enslaved to somebody else or in bondage to somebody financially, then we are not as free to be able to move. In 2005, we moved to Liberia, and that was where we started an organization called LEAD, Liberia Entrepreneurial and Asset Development. And that was where I fell in love with business. I was a social worker up until that time, but I came to believe that business is the real way to alleviate poverty and the importance of business. Since then, I pursued my MBA, and now I'm completing my PhD in sustainable development. Then we moved to Ghana, where I served as the regional coordinator for Partners Worldwide and oversaw the work in Ghana, Liberia, Cote d'Ivoire, and Nigeria. And that was when I started visiting Nigeria at that time as well. But in 2011, I began to be a little discontent about empowering businesses, but not knowing that they were continuing to be encouraged to do business to the glory of God, and realize that the importance of that to the church. That the church is that body where people gather together and continue to be equipped and discipled and encouraged and prayed over to do their business to the glory of God. And that was, I met Dr. Walker in Ghana. He invited me to teach at the Africa Theological Seminary in Kenya. And that was where this journey began of discipling marketplace leaders, but also beginning to teach accounting for pastors. And then Dr. Walker introduced me to DAI, where I came in contact with the integrity and finance materials. 2014, I remarried Michael Thompson, who is an acquisitions editor at Wifton Stock. He was with Erdmans for 23 years before that. So we are now DML. If you're new to DML, I don't know some of you. We are now working in 10 countries across West, Central, and East Africa. And our major objective is to release the people of God from the building to be the church every day of the week. We believe that work is worship, and it applies to all the workplaces where Christians find themselves. And so I'm going to show you a video, and it's called In Here, Out There. And one of the things that we know during COVID is that the buildings have been closed. I don't know in your country, I think we have 7 different countries on this call. We don't know whether your churches are able to be open. Our churches have been closed in the US for about at least 2 months now. And yet the church hasn't ceased to exist. The church has not ceased to do its work. And it continues to do what it needs to do in order to be the church every day of the week. So watch this. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Amen.
All right.
Amen.
Let me just, were you all able to see and hear that okay?
Amen.
Amen.
Yeah, I
Yes.
did.
Amen.
Okay. Good. Yeah, and so that's what we believe is that the church, we need to lead beyond our walls. People gather into the church building to be equipped, where that's what the video shows. There's a very important reason for the church to gather. We need to be equipped. We need to be led. We need to be encouraged. We need healing from what the world does to us. And then we need to be sent out to the world for every other day of the week in every sphere of influence where we have to be the church. And so we lead beyond the walls.
Ibrahim.
And so what I want to do right now, and so let me just tell you how this morning's going to go yet, because we have 2 hours and 15 minutes. I'm going to give you a few minutes to get into a group. And what I would like for you to do is to look at the verses that I'm going to give you. All right, so let me just put these up here for a minute. And I would like you to, I'm going to put you in the same teams that you were in before, in the same breakout groups. And it's very important. I joined 1 or 2 groups, but very important for everybody to take themselves off of mute when you go into your breakout rooms, and that you be fully present in your breakout room. I would like for you to select one speaker for your group, and then pick one of the 3 texts below. So right now you can maybe be writing these texts down or take a screenshot of this. I can also send it to you for your breakout room. But I would like for you to discuss the key point about what these verses teach us about integrity. Share it when you come back. Your speaker for your group should be prepared to just share briefly. What do you learn from these verses? So I'll divide you into your groups. I want you to pick either the first bullet, which is 1 Kings 9, verse 4, Psalm 7, verse 8, and Psalm 25, verse 21. Or you can select the second one, Psalm 26, verses 1 and 11, Proverbs 20, verse 7, or the third one, Job 2, verse 3, and Proverbs 11, verse 3. So each of these verses tell us something a little bit different about integrity. So I'm going to send you into your groups. I'm going to stop sharing this in order to do that, and send you into your breakout rooms again. I'm going to give you about 7 minutes to do this. So make sure that you go to your breakout room, unmute yourself, decide who will be the speaker for your breakout room, and then read these texts together and discuss what does this mean as it relates to integrity. All right, welcome to this classroom in this 21st century where we are going to send you to breakout rooms again. Here we go, 7 minutes or 8 minutes.